Welcome back. Another week of Podding with PT. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Patrick.
And today we got a very special guest.
My good friend, Eleanor David.
Hello.
We go back from freshman year of undergrad at the University of Arkansas.
Woo pig.
Yeah.
Wild. Yes.
And so crazy enough, this is my first memory of us starting to bond is when there was a Drake concert in Kansas City and we had an extra ticket, and talking to Ellie the night before and said she was a fan and she's from Kansas City. And so the day of, right before we drove up to Kansas City, our friend backed out. And I was like, she would love to go, but I don't have her number. I have no idea where she's at. And then I was like, and then we ended up having a crazy time getting lost in Kansas City, didn't know anything. And then I'm telling her this story. She's just like,
wow. Seriously.
Like,
and
it
was
here.
And he gave a brief summary, but it was pretty tragic. I remember you telling me you had to look for iPhone chargers to figure out where you were in the city, right, and electric outlets.
Yeah, we were completely all of it. There's three of us. Three of us. All our phones were dead, and we didn't know where to go. And we were in the middle of nowhere, and it was scary. And so we found a random gas station, and it was pretty cold outside. So we were sitting outside of a gas station, with our phone into the outlet, just enough so our phones can
come back.
And then we made our way to a hospital. And then we stayed in a hospital and charged our phones there because we didn't want to be in a creepy gas station.
I could have been there.
Right. Yeah.
Damn. How did the phones die at that point?
We were just taking videos. The Party Next Door opened up. Then it was Future, and then Miguel.
Gosh.
And then Drake. So the entire concert, it was videoing, and it did go up.
That sounds like your all-star lineup. Future and Drake, and that's all he needed. Party Next Door.
Look, and Janae Aiko came out.
Man,
He's still excited.
Oh, look, let me but Ellie's here.
Yes.
And I'm always kind of following what she's doing with fashion, fitness, and so it's super interesting. I'll let Ellie introduce herself.
Okay. Man, yes. Well, my name is Eleanor, but I did grow up as Ellie, so that's how Patrick knows me. So I actually started going by my full name in 2019 when I was doing a lot of changes at that time. So going by my formal name, my full name was one of them. But I have a background in psychology. That is how Patrick knows me from college, the U of A. I studied psych and criminal justice and thought I was going to be a forensic psychologist. So went on that path, showed up to graduate school, realized that's not what I wanted to do. And that actually the change that I actually wanted to make with people wouldn't be as far as I could do it in the criminal justice system or even in our mental health system. So I was kind of a reality check that it was going to take more out of me than I could ever give to it. So I withdrew after one semester and just started on of now what? What now kind of path. So that led me to live in South Carolina for about 6 months, where I did a lot of reading and studying. And that's when I got more into this energetic component, I think, that animates all of life and what was missing in my formal education. So I started reading a lot of books. I went vegan for a little bit, got really natural. I kind of did that rites of passage that I think we're witnessing a lot of people go through. Right?
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think the key is that it's a rite of passage, it's a doorway, but I think people get righteous in staying stuck in that realm. But it's meant for you to be aware and to grow and apply it to other sectors, not to be so steeped in it, in the veganism, in the, all natural. I believe in all those components, but there's an integration you have to go through. So 100%. I think that's, what I witnessed online. I'm man, there's I get it and I see it, but there's this application step that you do after, like into your own world, into your own life. But from there, after kind of coming into all that, I did go to Hawaii and I lived there for over a year. And that's when I started farming. And then once again, like eating from the earth, getting super intentional in real life with like all of these things I was learning. And it just completely expanded my view of like how I think of people, how they connect and relate to the world. So through all of this, I have always been into fitness. That got started in college, actually. I grew up as a dancer and then got into weights and stuff when I was in undergrad. And I have never skipped a beat since. Like, I loved it. I love the gym. I love moving. And I've always kept my love for psychology. So even though I'm not doing anything formal in psychology, I still love knowing how people are operating and why they're operating that way. And so that has come up a lot in fitness and then in fashion, as Patrick has noticed. If I could, I guess, dilute this down, I really like to know, how do people identify and how do they express themselves? So that's going to be, okay, verbally and non-verbally. So how are the sexes connecting and relating? How are you expressing yourself through your clothes? Like, what are people identifying about you from your presentation? So all of these sort of dynamics is like what I like to explore. And I'm just playing around with sharing with people. So
Oh, that's dope. Question
thanks.
for you. Did you ever have these types of conversations with Pat in terms of like the psychology of people in college? Because it's funny enough that I haven't had many of those, or we've had like a couple here and there, but it seems like from what he's told me, you guys had a bunch of those.
Yes. Okay. So at the U of A, I know it seems like a lot of your people are from the Northeast, but at like in Fayetteville on campus, there was the student union had this huge room called the flag room. And the flag room had a flag from every single country on the ceiling, or like in the world. So super cool spot. That's where a lot of activities happened. That was my favorite place to study. That was my favorite place to be. And a lot of people didn't understand because it was a very active place, but I find I get more distracted in silent spaces. So the more activities around me, the more I can focus. But I actually had this designated table where all of my friends knew to find me. And it got to the point where like people at the gym I'd never met would come up and be like, hey, you're that girl from the flag room. So that is where a lot of our conversations took place. So I was kind of the constant there. And a lot of the times Patrick and I would like meet or connect there, walk to lunch or something. And we discussed a lot. I think at that time it was more like social engagements, and I think probably like racial connections and those sorts of dynamics, but we always had really, deep conversations.
Yeah. So the flag room, I believe it's like a flag from every country that was a student at the University of Arkansas.
Oh, cool.
And so that's
Very
kind of
cool.
represented, but ultimately it was like a flag from everywhere, basically,
Yeah.
what it showed you. But yeah, I think what it got down to is like we always talked about what we were going through and kind of like
Right.
why, especially like day to day being a college student and like our relationships, our things with other people, and like how that's shifting us. And especially I remember we had a lot of talks during while Eleanor was applying for her doctorate in psychology, and just going through that. There's a lot of emotions going through there. And then when I was applying for PT school, like, and talking about, I was breaking down in hives every single day, not knowing why. And I was like, just trying to get down to like what's going on. So we were had quite a few discussions just about
roughing it together.
Right.
Yes.
Honestly, like
just both going through it.
Right. So it's like a lot of conversations, but from talking about breaking down romantic relationships,
Right.
racial, different school, any type of like barriers that we see in school. How can we change it? Why is it there? We had a lot of talk, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good relationship to have. Another question for, I guess, both of you, because Pat, I know you were vegan for a while. Side note, first off, when I first met Pat, he was vegan, I think, for about 2 years. And I think about 6 months into school, we went out to eat, and this man was devouring some chicken wings. So it didn't last for very long. But I noticed myself when I started eating healthier, how much different I started thinking. Like, what was that like for you guys? Is I guess going through like the vegan lifestyle? Like, did you see a difference in your body and the way you thought?
Go ahead, Eleanor. You can.
Yes, yes. So I feel like I probably dabbled in everything under the sun as far as like food intake and movement and experimenting. One of the things that veganism actually brought to me was because I was so focused in the weights and in that world. I was pretty intense, and I was like very militant about working out, what I was eating. I was eating according to macros at that time. So everything in my health was a math equation. So that, and if I wasn't hitting these numbers, like that really messed with my psyche. So I actually developed going more into veganism, this idea of like intuitive eating. So that introduced like a way where it wasn't so pressed on the numbers, because that's how I was operating for a really long time. And I did notice changes. I noticed I could recall my dreams better. Like a lot of things were just more clear in that sense. And then, but there did come a point where I don't think that it was beneficial for me anymore. And I was at a unique time in my life. So I think stress and emotion have to do with weight gain also. I think that's actually a lot of what has to do with weight gain, if I'm being honest. But at some point, I do think like you clean your system and then it's time to start to reintroduce things back in. And that was something I've learned now, is that I think actually health is being able to eat a lot of different things, not how much you restrict. So that was kind of like a mind switch for me too.
Nice.
Wait,
I like that a
hold
lot.
on. Say that one more time. Well, run that back for me.
Yeah, I don't know if I could repeat that, but your
like,
technology,
wow.
go ahead.
Yeah.
I think for me, my good friend Cordell and I, we started the vegan journey because it was like just being more aware of what we put into our body. And it just kind of started as, all right, let's just see how long we can do this, and just like as like a challenge. And then ultimately lasted 2 years. With like the way that it kind of ended, we started, as we discussed, what things what we were eating, what we were talking about. We started eating just like vegan junk food. So it went from a place of trying to be health conscious and being like very aware of what we're putting into our body. Then it turned into, we're just eating Oreos and French fries and and just ordering Chipotle, especially like getting into PT school and like that stress, and like I'm never at home. I'm never have time to meal prep. And then now I'm just like, let me just grab some Chipotle and just tell them not to put any meat on there. And so it's like less of that being aware of your body. So, but during that process, initially it was a lot of, I felt better because I was more active as well. I was just so kind of in tune with my body. So I don't know if it was because of the diet or because I was just working out more, running, and then also less crap that I was feeding myself. So
Gotcha. I've not dabbled in it at all, but I've definitely like started to see like eating more fruits and vegetables. I'm like, damn, I just think so much more clear. Or like even just like the way like my skin feels, like I feel like more hydrated. That was just kind of some of the stuff that I saw. And it was funny enough, when I moved here, I kind of went on a similar journey as you did. Of I started reading all these books. I made a joke that I was like, oh, I'm going to California. I'm turning vegan. And the car that I got was actually a Prius. And I started working at a hot yoga studio. So I was like, I guess this is a perfect setup. But but I agree 100% with what you said. We did have someone on, one of our friends before, that is a naturopathic doctor. And she talks about just the different spectrum of what you should be introducing into your body. So kind of to your point, it is really important not to only eat a certain type of food, but to introduce like different bacteria to your gut. So different types of food, and then your body should be able to handle it and then clean it out and then be normal functioning again. So I think that's a huge point that you touch on with dieting too.
Thank you. Yes. And I think I'm honestly still like healing from, once again, like eating like a bodybuilder. I never competed or did anything like that. So I thankfully I had not been eating processed food for years. So I wasn't like a junk food vegan. Like I was actually like a whole food vegan, but I had eliminated so much. Like, and it came to the point where I think I watched that episode uh, where it was just pretty much if I ate anything out of like these 12 foods, then my body was not having it.
Yeah.
That's not really, once again, a signal of good health. So yeah, it is. Once again, I think the gut's huge, and I love all the information you guys have been sharing about that.
Oh, thank you. Pat has been me and Pat have been talking a little bit about gut health, and then how that can relate to some referred pain, because I know that at some points, like um the visceral organs can give you referred pain. So I've been seeing it a lot recently now that I've been learning more about it, just to be like, okay, if someone's coming in with chronic neck pain or shoulder pain or whatever it may be, don't always take a look at the musculoskeletal system. Sometimes it might be the visceral organs. So pretty big with
Love
that
that.
is now how your gut, or not now, but how your gut now can give you like maybe neck pain when it comes to now breathing, if you're not eating the right foods, if you're not thinking the right thoughts. I've had people that now have just chronic neck tension because their diaphragm doesn't move that well. So they're using more like accessory muscles. So now their neck is always turned on, and it's just a whole cascade of events. So kind of, if you're not putting the right things into your body and being aware of it, like that's how those things can start to manifest.
And just to build on all of that, which I love, because it's the complexity of the human body is amazing. And then also,
Insane.
yes, exactly that too. That I remember when I first started reading more about these kind of things and like the quality of the food, where I had came across some information that 90% of your serotonin was released from your gut. And I was like, no way. Like, I just got a whole psych degree. I just got into a PhD program. We're always talking about serotonin as a neurotransmitter. And so I went and looked at, now I can't even remember it, but it's like the National Organization of Psychology. And I found a study that said, yes, indeed, like 90 to 95% of the serotonin was released from your gut. So the mind body connection is just, once again, massive to me. So not only are people experiencing like pain from just the quality of their gut in other parts of their body, but that once again just brought home like things like depression or this sort of like brain fog is very related to what we're eating, what we're digesting, and the gut. It's all there.
Talk that talk. Yeah.
Man,
Right. Yeah.
man.
And then you relate it to like how we're doing like as a at least like American society, like what's being pushed to us, what's available, food deserts, and it's crazy. Then you realize like why things are everybody's just like more mental health issues than just pain, like from the whole like
The whole thing.
whole spectrum. It's like, you know, we gotta get on point.
There was an interesting video I sent Pat. It was on TikTok. And actually, TikTok for me at this point, I was like, it's either funny or it's really educational. I was like, there's no in between that my timeline has. But one guy went in and he was like, oh, great, the 4th of July. So we're celebrating America. And it was like, what's on sale? What do people buy? It was like, when you think of soda, you think of now everyone who drinks alcohol just because it's a social event. And then he went and looked at like the cereal that you give your kids. So it's like all of these certain things, you're already kind of setting them up to be in those lower vibrations because you're not giving them the things that help them grow or help them have like sharper minds. So one thing that he also talks about a lot is a lot of intermittent fasting, because of now that helps with brain derived neurotrophic factor. So even giving yourself that small stress throughout the day that's like purposeful is helping, kind of like a cold shower. So it was like he kind of goes over all those things and how much we overeat as a society just because we're like, I need to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Where most people, and Pat talks about this too, is like, you don't, not everybody, but most people are sitting at a desk. You don't really need to fuel your body that much if you're staying sedentary for so many hours.
Right. Yeah. So the idea of especially eating on like a schedule is like, all right, what are you doing? Like, how are you fueling your body? does your body actually need that? I mean, yes, some people have dietary issues that they need to stay on a regular schedule, but some people with that's not taking medications or don't have any diseases, like, why are you eating? Are you eating because you're bored or you're tired?
Yeah,
Then yeah, or like you just have something in front of you. Let me just snack. So it's like, why are you taking in?
as much as you are. Yeah. And I think it's especially the board part. It was like sometimes I'll just be in the back and I'm like looking through the drawers to see what we have at work because they'll bring us food and candy sometimes. And when the candy's out, I'm like, damn, there's no candy in here. I'm like, do I really need to be sitting here eating? I was like, I'm not even hungry.
You know, I have a kind of like an intense mind thing that I do with that, where it hit me one day where I was like, it is such a privilege that we can grab a handful of food and just put it in our mouth just because we want to, like just because we're bored. Like if we think about the disparity of food, right? And just like what people have access to, like the fact, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
and sometimes I think about like we live in a time where simply because you have nothing else to do, you can just go put food in your hands. Like, we didn't
Yeah.
have to, yeah, we didn't have to even have a hand in like how the food came to be. Like it's just there for you to have whenever you want. And so sometimes like I'll kind of check myself in that way where it's like, man, um, thinking about that disparity, but then also looping in some gratitude for that. Like, wow, this is available to me. This is a like really beautiful position to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
look, abundance. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Like,
shit.
being grateful, like, hey, there's so much that you have just at your hands.
Damn.
It's like,
Yeah.
like
I
even
know.
the snacks that you have, abundance.
Yes, and to be wise about it. Yeah.
There's I think the same thing was on TikTok. Someone's like, isn't it crazy we have a problem with obesity in the same country that we have people starving to death? Like
Man.
that is an insane thought.
Right.
Yeah. That's wow. Yeah. That's a great point.
Eleanor, I do want to pivot to
Okay.
um what did it take to move away from your PhD program, and then just like that shift is pretty crazy because it's like all that time, attention that you put into going into school and what you think is going to be your career, just to be like, this is no longer for me.
Oh goodness. Yeah, I can already feel my like chest getting that was such a terrible time. That was definitely, I even tell people like that was like the lowest low I had definitely been at. And it was like a conglomerate of things. So I had mentioned earlier, I just realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. That wasn't like my path anymore. And I wasn't happy with where I was. I wasn't happy with the people around me. Like it was just no's across the board. And I was so sad. I was crying every day. Every day I was crying. I was so thankful I had what is GA? That's what they're called. A GA office like by myself. Like so I didn't have to be with the others. And I would just go in there and cry. Like it was crazy. I had never had like this emotional dam unflood like that. And it was for me, what was the most upsetting was that I didn't know what was next. So the whole point, I thought I was like, okay, we go from A to B to C to D, but like I don't want to go to E, and I don't know where else to go, and I don't know. And so it was like the unknown that I think affected me the most, and this idea that like I had set an expectation for myself and for everyone else to have of me, and I wasn't fulfilling it, and that was really shattering. That was truly shattering to me. So I remember it was like a couple months in, I told my professor that I'd like made the decision. She was the first person I told because I felt like I owed her, like I had made a commitment to her. So I wasn't going to continue to fulfill it, which is also like that's something I don't like to do. And then I told a couple of my friends. And so when that happened and the decision was made, I felt like a lot more free. But you know, it's funny because to me, it was so obvious. It was so obvious that several times people said, wow, that's like so strong of you. And that's so brave. And that was literally the weakest I'd ever felt, ever, like ever. So I thought like that was like this odd dichotomy. Like I had felt really just at the lowest, but people had seen that with like very high praise. So that was kind of an interesting thing that I realized that, you know, that courage and bravery like actually does exist in those states, even though it doesn't feel like it at all. Um, so yeah, so to me, it was just like, wow, it feels like the whole universe is just telling me no. And so I'm just going to answer this call. But in everyone else's perspectives, people are like, no, people like go through those no's. Like people like kind of push through like that and saying things that they're unhappy with. I was like, I feel like I'm deteriorating.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It definitely
I don't know how people can continue like this. But yeah, so that was, I don't know if that truly answered the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so now looking back on it, is like if you have any advice for someone that's possibly looking to like switch careers or like just started something and I was like, this may not be for me. Like, how do you start to like just get in the mindset of making a change?
You know, I think I'll answer that, but just to backpedal a little bit, if I could give any suggestion, is that is actually there are signs along the way. Like there are those red flags that we all ignore with like relationships, people, that sort of thing. But I definitely had mine before grad school, and it was during applications. And what's funny is Patrick remembers this. And I have another friend who remembers this. They're like, no, I remember you just crying in the flag room, like just the stress of trying to get it together. And somehow I had blocked that out. Like my psyche had actually blocked that part out. Like I totally, anytime I think of graduate school, I think of then, but I was actually like living the no before it happened. Like, and I think about that. I'm like, why would something put you through that much stress? Like it changed my state so much. Like why would that feel compatible to me? And I believe that like there is a, you know, a place for like stress and perseverance and like resilience, but it is, I think, our job to kind of discern what is worth pushing through and then like what is just spiraling downward. And that was my trajectory. So I think that would be my first suggestion, is really like what are the signs along the way, the red flags, and what kind of fear are you experiencing? And is it the, like I just described it to a friend that I was thinking about camping somewhere by myself. And so, but I noticed that the fear was different. Like it was like a fear I was kind of like dancing around with, like, oh man, like I'm being by myself, this and that, this and that. But usually the no's, it's like an immediate like gut fear, like, oh no, that's a no. And so that's how it's different for me, is like there's usually like an initial like full body, it's there. And then there's something like my mind will flirt with, right? So that's, I mean, a nuanced kind of way, but I think that's helpful as you're moving down a path, or when you know something's expired, like it was great for a year and a half, 5 years, 10 years, and now it's time for you to go. You kind of have those signs, like you get those feelings, you get that like, man, I think it is. And I guess what I would say is just like grace, like truly just, it's okay. Like it's totally okay to change your mind. And truly nothing lasts forever. I do think things like have an expiration date, and that doesn't mean we uproot our life completely, but sometimes it is like adding something fresh or coming to it with a new lens that you accept that change is inevitable. And so when you kind of get those like hints, that you're just accepting of it and move with it.
Yeah,
And you have to be proactive. Yeah.
got to.
Ooh,
Wow.
Have you I'm interested because have you read or listened to Matthew McConaughey's book Green Lights?
No.
I think you would really like that one. Just a quick synopsis of what it's about is pretty much, he says life is like a stoplight. So you have your green light situations where like everything is hitting perfectly and like this is whatever your calling is to do that. You have yellow light where things kind of, maybe if it's like the idea you flirt around with, whereas like it doesn't seem like 100%, but maybe
Right.
there's something you can learn, still keep going forward. And then you have those red light situations, whereas like all the signs are around you to tell you like, this is not what you're supposed to do, but maybe there's something to learn from. So
Right.
for me, that was super helpful in understanding. I went through a little bit of like mental health in college, mental health problems when it came to volleyball. So for me, it was like, that was always my green light situation, where it was like, that brought me confidence, that brought me the friends that I had. It took me to places I never thought I could be. And then I
Cool.
kind of hit a hard wall when I got to college, and a couple things with that. So for me, that was more of my red light. So it was like, this was coming to the end. And what can I gain from it? It was like, I still had amazing friends that now did amazing things for me and let me stay at their house for a couple of weeks when I moved out to California. Didn't know how I was going to afford that at all, or just the connections I made. So for me, even looking at life in that aspect, to say, okay, every situation I go through, is this a green light, yellow light, red light? Like, what can I learn from
Nice.
it, or do I keep just persevering through? So I think
Right.
that for me is how I kind of look at it, where you're like, what made you stop, or like the signs or the fine lines.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would like that book a lot.
Cool. Thank you.
Nice. I was thinking like on that book, and I was like, I forgot that I read that book, honestly, or I listened to the book on Audible, and I was like, and like some of those stories, it's like he kind of walks you through his whole life, and just like how he reflects on his red lights, green lights, yellow lights, and
Right.
where he is at now. And I was like, and it's so profound, just like that part of reflection and just being able to
Yeah.
look back and first like be grateful, like, wow, you've been through a lot, like you live like many lifetimes, like it's
Yes.
time is crazy, and like there's the experience and situations that you've been through have been really pretty like intense.
Mm.
And so and you made your way through it, so now being able to look back and like, what did you learn, and like how did you get through it, and then taking that into the next situation. And so
Right.
sometimes we just lose, we're always like so quick to go on to the next, we lose like that ability to look back and say, wow, I did just learn a lot.
Mm.
So even just like you mentioning that book, it's like, wow, like I didn't forget that I had like access to like
Yeah.
that knowledge and like that way of thinking.
100%. I think also for me, it helped me open up my eyes to people go through a lot of shit you have no idea about. And it was like, I
Yes.
always thought Matthew McConaughey is like, he's a cool dude, like had everything going in life for him. But he breaks down certain situations, and you're like, you have no idea what everyone is going through. It was like somebody's parents might be fighting to the point where they have to hear their parents getting into physical altercation night after night. And then they come to school and they, for some reason, might have a bad mood. You're like, why is that person always in a bad mood? So for me, I've taken that into my patients also, to be like, okay, you're coming into me at your most vulnerable state. And it was like, clearly you have a million things going on. The last thing you really care about is what I'm about to tell you about how you're moving right now. So it was like taking that all into perspective. And then
Yes.
I want to know a little bit about you and how you do personal training with the background in psychology.
Oh, yes. Well, I think that majority of health is actually mental and emotional. I think, and I think we kind of have it backwards in the health and fitness industry, where we're so focused on the body, which is great, but it's like, do these burpees, eat this
Yeah.
salad, and this is it. Like, this is the magic recipe. And it's like, man, no, there is a complex psychology going on of decision making, of perception. And one of the things that I've really learned specifically with women, because I went through it, is that if you're not in a mental and emotional like place of like balance, whatever you're doing like healthy physically, like it will not impact the body you think it will. Like the physical change, for the physical change, there has to be like, you have to add the emotional, mental, like in that component. And with physical training or personal training, it's just, I gauge people are ready to like receive and go as deep as they want to go. Like there's different levels to that. So there are some people I've worked with where we can get pretty much like to the heart of things, of like past trauma, past thinking, right? And a lot of it is the nervous system. So this is a somatic thing, like your body, your mental narrative that you have day to day. If your nervous system is on go the whole time, then guess what? Like a woman's body is going to protect themselves by storing fat. It's literally insulation. So that's something too that is really important for me to figure out how I can bring that up to where they're open to that conversation, because people think like, oh yeah, I'm going to get a sweat on and then like, have someone to tell me to do two more. But it's like, that's not actually what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
That is just, yes, that we are doing. Yes, I'm happy to do that with you. But to actually really make that like layer of change is to focus a lot on what is like this, what is your psychology here? And that I think is huge. And I, in my intake form, like ask, what is your social network look like? Because this is a thing too, where it's like, do you have social support? Because when you start to make changes, you are going to have to say no a lot. You are going to say no a lot to people you love, to people who are expecting a different answer, to people who once connected to you or felt intimacy with you, like through ice cream and Oreos, right? Now you're saying no to that. So there's like, even that layer, I try to get like a gauge of like how accepting are the people around you, because that's also going to be, once again, huge for just how consistent you can be. And then like, how much like do you even have to like be able to like upkeep the nose, really? That's a big one.
Extremely powerful. I'd even say off that alone, you're probably top 1% of anybody that trains any like physical body. Taking that all into account, because that's really rare to really get someone that looks at all of those, because they do play a role. It's like, if I'm telling you like we're trying to get on this goal, but you and your friends like to hang out by eating ice cream and Oreos, that's going to impede everything going forward. So even looking into that's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that has like a you really can gauge like how committed someone is, because it's like, all right, we can't go that far. Like, you have this goal, but until you look at everything around you, it's like, how obtainable is that goal until you break it down?
Right.
Yeah. I need to start asking those same questions. Shit, like, what does your social circle look like? I have never asked that.
Oh gosh, it's so, yeah. No, that would be a great addition. It's so relevant. And then too, because then you'll also get an idea of how it's contributing to their own dialogue, like their own narrative of themselves. And it's interesting, because if people are complaining about, being overweight and eating things, and that's who they're around, or, there's the way they describe like their friends, like that'll be like insecurity. There was a woman I talked to at a gym I worked at whose husband, oh man, I'm like, geez, like he's just an anchor. Like he's just an anchor. Wait, wherever if she wants to move up, this man is just, yeah, I'm like, dang it. But I'm happy you showed up today, right? Like, and so I'm very impressed with her, but it really opens a lot more information of like kind of how they're processing things, and like where they are as far as like, I agree to this and or I don't. There's a woman I worked with where I was seeing her, 6 months, like 3 times a week, and like nothing was like budging. And I was just like, man, I know you're doing this, I know this and that. And so I can't even remember what I asked her specifically, but her answer was, well, it doesn't matter what I do, it's not going to work anyway.
That one right there.
Oh my God, yo, we've been working for 6 months, like 3 times a week. But if that's like, if that's the tape, how much can I truly like offer to that? So all of it's relevant. All of it is relevant. And it is tough, because actually I think that the pace of their progress is more on this. At least what I've noticed. Because I don't know, that's kind of a pattern I have. Like, I've been working with women with like very slow changes, and I really think a lot of it is there, but I don't give up on anyone. So, it's still like, a matter of kind of their own pace with that. And then of course introducing good habits and like getting them in love with moving. And that's a win for me too. But I think a lot of, especially with women, I think men's anatomy is completely different. That's a huge piece of it.
Tyler has a thing that he mentioned a couple times that's like changed the way that I think. It was like they come to you for a specific goal for something specific, but they don't accept other pieces of that. I can't do it
it pretty much is like, so say someone's coming to you for personal training and they're like, hey, I want my body to look like this in 6 months. So they agreed to what they have an idea of what the training should look like, but you're a lot more educated than them on the whole spectrum. So whether it's eating well, your social circle, all that different types of stuff, what you say in your head. So you have a global piece of what it should look like. And for me, one of my problems was like, oh, since I know this, I'm just going to tell you this. And since you're coming to me, you want to know that information. But so many people are like, no, I only agreed to one part of this. So it's like, if it's working out, then that's all I want to really agree to you on. And then it's our job to pretty much say, okay, let me meet you where you're at, and then slowly start introducing certain things to make you more aware of it. So it's like, it goes back to, I forgot exactly what it's called, but like the different stages of like when you're like in the pre-contemplative, contemplative, like taking action, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of read people. And I think psychology will do a great thing for that. Just to be able to read people and say, okay, let me gauge where they're at and what they're probably open to doing. And then afterwards, you start to feed them the little pieces of the whole puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, that's great. And yeah, I think that's wonderful strategy. I've also found that for some, and this is only really reading people, is like the opposite end. Some people are really receptive to you just being blunt, where I've had some very successful conversations where it's like, I'm happy that you came to work out, but if you really want to see this progress in this amount of time, you have to change what you're eating. And they're like, damn. But yeah, so yeah. And I love that. I love kind of seeing where people are and like where they want to be and what is that space in between. And you bridge it differently. Everyone's a little different with their bridge.
Yep. I think that one is huge. A lot of people know, I feel like a lot of people know what they need to do, but they don't see the value in it. So it's like, I know I can't eat Oreos and ice cream every night, but shit, that's like my way I decompress. And for us, it's like, okay, how do we now relate that to what you like to do? Is like, can we find other avenues of decompressing for you to make sure that we build better habits? So it's like, whenever I'm stressed or anything like that, I don't now strictly go to the bar and now drink for however many hours. Like, finding different avenues for people, I think, is one of our biggest goals. So it may not be like, I'm going to change your physical body right now, but how can I make the pieces of your puzzle better so that you can do that?
Yeah, that's great. I wonder how it would work in physical therapy, but I did hear or came across this, I thought was so powerful, is that really the change you want to make, you have to identify as that change. So if you want to like lose weight, you have to start identifying as a healthy person. So does a healthy person like reward themselves with Oreos? No. Like, does a healthy person hang out with these people? Does a healthy person even go and like dress this way? Right. So it's like very minutia, but it's like, okay, so how do healthy people reward themselves? Maybe they like do a bubble bath. Maybe they go get a massage, right? Like, you're taking care of your body in a different way, right? Because healthy people take care of their body. So that's how I reward myself. I don't reward myself that goes against the identity that I'm looking to achieve. So I think that's another one that's also just to your point of like, okay, what are the better puzzle pieces for, who you're trying to be?
Yeah. Motor imagery is a big one for that. Is like, so if you have pain, how can we get you to, how would you move if you didn't have pain? And so you have someone close their eyes and they're supposed to practice what they would move like or what the action is, and they're imagining what it feels like, what it looks like. And so that one's pretty huge because a couple studies have shown that your brain doesn't know the difference between real life and what you imagine, which is also on the converse is what gets to be people's problem, where now if they start thinking negative, they just run into a certain loop. So targeting that by saying, okay, if you have pain, maybe let's close your eyes and let's imagine what you want to get out of this goal, out of this session. Maybe how do you want to feel? What does it look like? What does it feel like? So that for me is what I've been using, a little bit more of like motor imagery. Or
Very nice.
Oh wow.
yeah.
Okay. Let me add that to my mental bank. Let me start adding in these
Yeah,
questions.
seriously.
Especially like I mentioned before other episodes, I like to start a lot of my physical therapy sessions with just deep breathing, especially if I sense that they're like really tense or having like a tough day or things are going on and they're not in a place of like being receptive to rehab at this point.
Oh, that's great.
So let's just take a deep breath and just try to get to a present peace of mind.
So smart.
And so now just like, all right, what are you want to get out of today's session? Or how do you want to feel today? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, let's add some more. Let's layer it a little bit more. Even just while you're breathing, like relaxing, let's like set some intentions for this session.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes into like a huge way of kind of what you said, how like all of this in here is going to relate to your output. So way the similar like how the human body works. So it's like you need afferent. So information that comes from your external environment has to go up to your brain to then process it, to then give you a motor output. So it's like if something along those lines is not functioning well, so if it's like maybe your afferent information is not giving you the proper communication. And then the big thing then is this safe for you? So it's pretty much what your brain asks you all the time. It's like, is this safe for me? So if I'm not getting accurate information from maybe my skin, that can be a big thing, but then also my thought process. So it's like, if I can't now take this information and make an accurate judgment and say, is this safe? Then it's going to decrease my output. So then you come into people who have problems, if they have problems breathing, if they're chronically stressed. So it's like they don't have a good perception of what is safe. So
Right.
like that is huge to even start and say, you've been going through a million stressors throughout this day. Let's just start and just breathe. Let's just forget everything else that had happened. And let's make this a place of healing to say, okay, if I do experience some pain, I know it's for a better cause of like, I'm opening my body up for healing.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ellie, just another quick pivot because I definitely want to talk to you about fashion and what you're doing. And
Oh, fun.
Series and just with, especially, I was gonna send you a message. You were talking about the difference between Kim Kardashian and Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
Like crazy things to think about. But how did you get into like that type? I don't even know what to describe it. Just like the relationship between people and kind of this dynamic of relationship dynamics.
So as I mentioned earlier, I'm really interested in identity and self-expression, right? Like I love the psychology of it. So I've always loved people's origin stories and like understanding kind of where all the lines connect. But with the transition of going vegan, of farming, of this sort of thing, right? Like there's this like woke community. So when you learn about all of these like additives and things in food, you also see what's going on like in the media. So you start to see like, why are all these things accessible to us? And then kind of what is the messaging that's made us gravitate towards it? So since then, I've been very interested in like, how do people identify and how much of it have they just absorbed from mass messaging? Like what actually is them and what have they just subconsciously adopted from all of these things around us? So I've spent a lot of time because I feel like the beauty industry and like the health and fashion industry are sending some really perilous messages to women. Even the fitness industry too. So I have a lot to say about that. So I've spent quite a bit of time like looking into what are these mass messages and then how are people absorbing it. And that's really what I kind of want to bring to light. Like, hey, have we noticed? Has anyone else, been aware of what this is signifying, and then like how it's translating to all of the American women, like just what do we think about this? So that has been my intention to just shed light in. And what I want to get the point at is that I believe that there is a bigger, I hate to use it, like a bigger agenda of separation. I think that there is all of these messaging trying to separate your mind from your body. I think there's messaging trying to separate women from confidence. I think there's messaging separating men from unifying with women in a healthy way. Same thing from women unifying with men in a healthy way. And so to me, I just see this lens of separation. That's how I see it. I'm like, man, they are really trying to separate this from this from this. Because if it was all unified, that would be a powerful thing, right? You disempower by separation. So that's truly like at the essence, which I haven't really spelled out before just now, is truly what I want to just communicate. Like, hey, there's a lot going on here that I don't even think we're realizing.
Talk.
Yeah. I know. I was like, let me catch my breath.
Damn, spicy.
Yes, and I get a little spicy about it. But but my love of like health and beauty and women, I have been focusing like more on fashion, and I want to get more into these hot conversations, but I feel like I've had to kind of like warm up the skillet with my like Instagram family. And part of what I did this fashion series was a study on the yin and yang styling methodology. So it goes back to like, okay, there are these yin elements in nature and people and these things, these yang. And guess what? These building blocks of the whole world of, of personalities, of the natural things, of architecture are also in your clothes. So I can read a lot from you by kind of like what you decide to put together. So what I think is my favorite part about this is that they view beauty as harmony. So it's not this like, Kardashian or like Barbie sticker that we're like all trying to implement, but it is like how much yin and how much yang do you have just in your natural essence? And when you dress it harmoniously, that's what's actually beautiful, right? So that's my thing, is when you figure out who you are, then you can start to dress in accordance with it, right? And it reads like people read your faces. It translates. I know.
And now like, I'm going into like a deep dive. I was like,
what do I wear?
Like, who am I? And how do I dress?
Listen, and I can't even tell you how difficult it's been for me to like put this in 60 seconds reels. I think that's been the most challenging part for me, is that like my mind is like seeing things in patterns, and it's like this. So I'm very thankful for even being able to talk with you guys about this, because I want to be very long-winded with it, and it's been a good practice for like, how do I condense this idea into like a reel, into a minute, where people can try to see what I'm getting at. But I guess to circle back, as I just did like a little series, and I'm still debating if I want to build more on it because I have more ideas on it, but Marilyn Monroe and Kim Kardashian, I am explaining how like the feminine sex appeal is presented as a sex object versus a sex agent. So I'm just using two iconic women to demonstrate like how this is translating, how the beauty and fashion industry is emphasizing one over the other. I think that there's a whole other series of messaging for men to gravitate towards one over the other. I think it's being played on both sides. I'm not interested in like bashing women at all. It's just like, hey, there's some things going on over here that are appealing to not our best interest. And they're doing the same to men. and if I can just point that out in like a neutral, even way. And I think that's been, yes. And I'm still trying to figure out how to build this. I would like to support myself off of this work. Right now, it's just like, let me just throw out some information I've come across to just get people aware. But yes, that is, I don't know where you want to emphasize or build on, but maybe that's a good blanket to start.
Keep going. That's just keep going, because that is some crazy stuff. I think we talked about it a little bit. It was like, damn, it's really easy when you can see how there's some separation when people try to create things. It was like, what are you trying to portray? Even in like medicine commercials that you see, it was like it's a very scientific way that they make you do this, or they lure you in. It's during a time when you're not really thinking a lot, so it could be late at night, early in the morning. They play very happy vibrational music, and they show very people that are either in extreme pain or very happy, and then they put under subtitles, so that way it goes more towards your subconscious mind, that you're
Yes.
not analyzing what you're reading, and you think either I want to be happy like that person if I have whatever disease they're portraying, or I don't want to be as bad as that person, so let me take whatever it is. So it's like you don't analyze as much, but you can tell in the way that they do it that they kind of lure you in, and then when you're not paying attention, they throw something in so that way your subconscious reads it. And Soul Cycle, I did notice that at one point, because my sister used to go to Soul Cycle and was addicted. Like, these people would be on these bikes like 5 to 6 days a week, multiple times a day, and you cannot get a membership for these things. It's like you got to pay per class. So I was like, damn, these people are a cult. But then I came to find out that the big thing with them is riding to the beat of music. So it increases everyone's vibration. And then certain spots on the wall, it'll say things like obsessed or cult or addicted. So that way, when you're feeling good with other people and you're in these high vibrations, you look over and you don't realize it. And you're like, oh, damn, maybe I am a part of this cult. Or you look at that and it's like, damn, this brings me so much joy, so much love. And you can see how people try to affect the subconscious a lot with those things. So definitely in clothing, I can see the parallel.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, no, and this is truly what is of my interest. It's like, what are these subconscious messages? Speaking of the fashion, when I first started just like introducing my interest in fashion to people, I would make reels, and I refer to them as like archetypes. So what I would do is I would take like one piece of clothing and then I would style it in like 7 different ways. But the idea, like an archetype, is actually a subconscious persona. So it's a character that we all instinctively recognize, because these characters, these come from stories we've been telling from like 4 millennia. So when we told stories about, like the fool, or like the thief, or like love and heartbreak, right? All of these characters have come over time. They're in Hollywood. We told them in fire, like side chats, literally. So I studied from a woman who went over 7 female archetypes very specifically, and I learned a lot about them. So I took her work and I was like, hey, here is like a white button-up shirt, but that there's 7 different girls who would wear it in these ways. And the thing is you're making these calculations all the time, where it's like, oh, I could see my mom wearing that, but my aunt wouldn't wear that. Do you know what I mean? Or like, yeah, my girlfriend's into that. Or wow, all of my girlfriends are into that. Like, you know what I'm saying? That type of style, that type of clothing. So the reason this is so effective, these characters, is because it speaks to your subconscious. We collectively all recognize this. So that was my intro of just bringing this point, like, hey, there are these characters that you're aware of, and they all dress a different way, and they're going to talk a different way, and they're going to act a different way. They're going to be interested in different things, but you're already making those calculations subconsciously. So I just want to bring it once again to the awareness. Same thing with the mass messaging. Like, what have you just kind of adopted, and without even realizing, but you're aware of it? I just want to add a language like, hey, do you notice how this and this and this, how we asked a critical question about it? And you're like, oh shit, yeah, no, that is right. Like, I haven't heard it that way. But just bringing more awareness to these things.
Wow, that is extremely powerful, because that it goes back to that intention, like that intention. Do you know what you're putting on your body now? So it's like we focus now, like, what are you ingesting, but what are you putting on your body to even, like, are you completing those stereotypes or the archetypes?
Right.
I think Tyler and I was having this conversation. He was like, he loves Southern California because he can wear comfortable clothes. Like, he was like, I'm not looking to buy any dress clothes. Like, for what? Like, I can wear like comfortable pants and flip flops. There's no need to have this like business persona. And so
Yes,
just like even that, like, all right,
exactly.
being in a place where I can still be able to be perceived as, or not be perceived as anything. It's like I can still be smart and be myself, but no matter what I wear. And just like how even that is like powerful and just like, all right, cool. Like people not gonna
Yes.
do one thing or the other based on how comfortable I am.
Yeah, I love that. Very cool.
Now I'm thinking it's like why do you need to be so comfortable? It's like where you
Yeah.
like who are you? What are you trying to
Yeah.
portray? Like what's going on? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Something to tell me? Do I have some comfort problems?
Me? Tell
Uh,
you?
well, so I had grown up pretty much. We always had to wear a uniform. So it was like middle school
Uh,
had to wear a uniform, high school we had to wear a uniform, and even my mom is very much, and my parents in general, just like, hey, dress for the job that you want. And I was like, job that I want, and really is wearing what I wear right now. It's like I want to be able to wear shorts and a t-shirt and sandals, and then show up to work and treat. And it's like I want to be able to treat at a high level, but it doesn't, for me necessarily. Clothes were always very restricted, where it was like I
mm,
had to wear a shirt and tie, I had to wear a button up. And then when I got to college, I was like, oh, I could wear sweatpants to class. So I was like, this is pretty dope. And now moving to an area of I can wear whatever I want because of now the weather. I was like, I
yes.
wear scrubs to work, but they feel like I've been able to mask some sweatpants. But pretty much I'm wearing sweatpants to work, and then I come home and either wear shorts or sweatpants. So for me, it's always just like moving free, and I like to be free. So that way I don't
Mm.
feel like I'm being as constricted. It might be part of a personality that I have, but
You look, you're trying to be free, move around. Like you're trying to, hey, these chains ain't gonna hold you down no
I'm
more.
saying.
I love it. Yes, there is a woman I came across, and she's coined the fashion psychologist. So you guys know, I was like all over it. I love her. I took her course and that kind of thing. But you realize how much psychology is in people's closet. And it's fascinating because she does traditional therapy. And then after several sessions, then she'll start introducing like clothes, like this kind of clothes component of it, which is fascinating because a lot of, once again, our connection to clothes or certain things is from like childhood, like, or from like how your mother took care of herself, or like even like your father's expectations. So it's all intrinsically related.
Yeah, I'm interested to know more. Do they have like, well, so does she have courses online or like an Instagram or anything?
Yeah. Her name is Dr. Dawn Karen. And so there's two ends, and she teaches out of the New York Fashion Institute. And so she does like some traveling and stuff there. But she had a TED talk I came across, and then I went and got her book, and then I got her course. And so, but she's on Insta, and yes, and does a lot of things online.
Yeah. I were taking a step back and just like seeing you, Eleanor, like talk about fashion and like just kind of like how you present yourself. Because I remember when you moved to Hawaii, you kind of completely started over everything. It was like because you cut your hair, you kind of like disconnected from honestly like reality, and then like now coming back into it with this like all right, and being very, sounds like very intentional, and then just like aware of every piece of things that is going into not only what you eat but uh and what you do, but what you wear.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for recognizing that. Yes, at that time in Hawaii, I had like cut off all of my hair, and I was like only wearing secondhand clothes, and I didn't touch makeup at all. So that was a really interesting time where it was a very deep question, like what actually is beautiful, and like kind of what is sexy, what is appealing, now that I don't have all of these external things I used to play with to like present that way. And so it actually became a very deep dive of like what is attractive and what is appealing now that I've eliminated all the externalities. And I feel like now that I'm back to it and I've integrated, I do understand that like beauty actually is like a very interpersonal thing. Like this all is just kind of play. Like it's like fun to like play with it, but I don't need it. And I did not have it at that time, but now if I were to go back, I'd understand that. Like if I didn't have hair again, like I think I could still move like I did. So it's yeah, very
Wow, all right.
yeah, it is that. And that was an unexpected lesson. I didn't anticipate that one, but
Are there any like anticipated lessons
Oh, true.
in life?
Best lessons. Best
Yeah.
lessons are unexpected.
Very true. Yes.
So
Um,
what did you find on that when you asked yourself that question? What else did you find? Did you find anything of like that you still carry to your like to this day when you're in Hawaii and we're like, okay, what is beauty?
Yeah. Well, I remember I lived with a family. So I was talking to the woman. We were like bagging lettuce, right? And I had shared with her, it's like I don't think anyone's gonna think I'm cute. Like that was like a thing. She looked at me, she's like, it's not really, she's like, it's not really about that. It's how you carry yourself. And that was like it. And that still is stark for me. And what was interesting was I received when I first cut my hair, I probably received like 10 compliments in like a 2 week period on like people liking my hair. And I thought that was so bizarre. I thought that was so bizarre. And some people actually did comment like on my face, like, oh, you have like a pretty face. Once again, I was going into this thinking I had dyed my hair. I was eliminating all these chemicals, right? So it's like, I'm just getting to as natural as I can. This is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I don't think I'm going to be cute out of this. Like we're just going to go for it and see what happens. But after I learned that, then I started coming to like when I came back to the mainland, I saw once again these like the messaging of like this is what's hot, this is what's pretty, this is like what's appealing. And what was funny is the other thing I recognized is that an observation of my male friends was even though they had certain preferences of like physical appearance, body type, whatever, I knew for a fact that they had been with other women who didn't have those things, like who didn't have those traits. And I was like, there's something to this here. Like we do have kind of aesthetic preferences, but actually that's not truly what only moves a man. And if we keep thinking that beauty is just appealing to men, but then if we appeal to them, they're still going to choose something different anyway, something's not right there. Like it's not adding up. You see what I'm saying?
Math, math.
Yes. So that,
100%.
yeah. So, and then that's, I mean, it's totally cheesy, like the inner confidence, like inner beauty. And I kind of, when I see those kind of things, like I might do an eye roll, like if the sentiment isn't there. But it is very true that there is like an inner glow that just like shines out of you. And however you choose to present yourself, like the man is actually attracted to the glow. And it is that harmony. Once again, that yin and yang, like beauty is harmony. So when you're comfortable like in yourself and you're just presenting as you are, as you choose to be, like that's actually very attractive. And that's, and that's what that is.
Oh yeah, that is spot on. I feel
Okay,
like
yeah. If male opinions want to throw, I mean, I don't want to speak for you.
no, I agree 100%. That was like, because after a while, it's like looks are very nice. Then, of course, that's the first thing that you notice on someone is how they look. But then to keep that person around is like, do we mesh well? Do you think the same way I think? Like, are you interested in continuing to grow? Because like, I know people that look good right now, and then when they got to their 30s, all of a sudden everything went downhill. So it was like, and then that's a huge testament. So how you look, I feel like at some point can show how you are as a person. So if you're going to the gym and you're taking care of yourself and you're thinking of those other things, like I want to eat well because I want to, I don't know, continue on this path. For me, that's a very important thing to say. Okay, you look at your body and you see it as a temple and you want to continue to give it what it needs to grow. So that part of the physical aspect is what I like. Whereas like you're dedicated to yourself and making sure yourself is the best that it can be.
yeah, and then on that, it's like there's no specific body goals. It's like no, you're just working to be the best that you can be, whatever that is, and that I think that is attractive. Like, all right, wow, like, and or as well as um bringing how do I feel around you? Can we just sit here and just do nothing? I was like, sure, you might be beautiful to that could be like the initial attraction of why I come to talk to you, but like I'm not gonna stay if I don't feel any, if I'm not inspired by you, or like want to just be in your
Right.
presence. There's so much to like relationship and just like bonding than just like beauty, as one might say. So it's all about like getting to the root of who you are and how being around you like makes me feel like, does it energize me?
Love that.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And I think that men have a very clear gauge on that, actually. I don't think that they know how to articulate it as well as like you just did, but that, and I think that's what's confusing for women is it's like, well, I am presenting in this way that is like appealing. I look the look, but it's like, you know, that like, that's, it's just like it's a fleeting thing. And so they're confused, like, what, I'm doing the things, I look the look, I'm playing the part. But it's like you sense that that's like a short term something, like there isn't this energizing piece to it. But if she was in harmony, like with herself, if she was like feeding herself, like that energetic flow reads, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
not like, oh man, I'm disjointed from myself and I'm gonna like put on this appearance to appeal to this type because this is where the value is coming from. I feel like you see the, like you can read the disjointedness of it, and that's like, it's only good for just like a piece, right? It's not good for the consistency.
That short term, like, yeah, I'm here, or I here for this piece alone. Is like, other than that, all right, cool. Like, I will find
Yeah,
somebody that makes me feel energized or makes me feel safe,
exactly.
makes me feel
And
different way.
yes, yes, all those things. And I do want to also just make sure I emphasize that I do think beauty is important. Like I do think that it is worth spending time on. And I think that women, yeah, should take care of themselves in that way. And it's like, you should just enjoy yourself in that way and like play with it. Um, and that I feel, and this is going to be probably controversial, but I do think a huge purpose of women is actually to be beautiful, is to present themselves in that way. But we've made it so like toxic, and it's all rooted in self-esteem issues, right? Not in like empowerment issues, because I do think that men are inspired by beauty. And that once again, that feeds you, that energizes you, but we've created the beauty in a way that it doesn't energize men. It just makes them fleeting. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think a big thing is, and this goes back to exercise that we've talked about too, is I agree that I think beauty is extremely important, but there's no set definition on what beauty is. So like
Right.
for us, that's the same way of an exercise. And that was where I think you can get a lot of confidence issues, because it's like, hey, I don't look like what the picture wants me to look like. So if I'm doing a lunge, or if I want to go out and I want to look like Kim Kardashian, or if I want the lunge to look this specific way and it doesn't,
Right.
now all of a sudden I failed at that. And that's a huge problem that we have right now, is like beauty is anything that you want it to be. Is like, as long
Right.
as you believe that it's beauty, then that's what's going to help you move forward and give you that confidence. So I see kind of what you're saying in terms of the beauty is very important, because I agree with that. I believe that there's no one definition of beauty. It's
Right.
what you make of it and how you feel about it that makes it beautiful.
Correct. Yes. No, I love that. And I think that's a great parallel with like the lunge, right? And just once again, this blueprint that we're just continuously being like fed. And then is that truly applicable? Like, is that actually you? Once again, this whole identity thing. And yeah.
Like, yeah,
So
we
yeah.
were listening to Philosophize This on our way to Arizona,
Oh,
and I believe it was Socrates who spoke about what is beauty. Is it something that's functional, or is it something that you look at, or and it went down this whole rabbit hole, just of different ways of thinking. So
I love that. Yeah, I think it's both.
yeah,
Yeah.
but thank you, Ellie, for spending some time and
Oh
hopping on.
my gosh. Yeah, thank you. This was such a treat. I'm very grateful that you, yeah, even considered me. So this was wonderful.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts that you want to just share, or as well as where to find you on Insta or social media?
Oh goodness. I guess I like to end all of my things with just thank you. After every post, like I hashtag like thank you for your witness. So I think that's just like what I would like to say is that I have these ideas and thoughts and these things, but it only matters when it's bounced off of someone else, right? When it's reflected off that way. It's like the witness in it, I think, is just half of it. If I'm doing things in the dark, then what is this? So yeah, so I guess I would just like to express gratitude to you, and then whoever else clicked on the YouTube video. Like, thank you for your witness. I am at Eleanor David. So my name, and I have EL period. Some people call me L. So EL period, EANOR, and then David. So yeah, and that's just where I do some of my musings right now. And that's what I'm up to.
Word. Yeah, we'll put your social medias in the YouTube comments and make sure people can contact you for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Shit, that was an awesome conversation.
Cool. I agree. Well, nice. Well, I appreciate it. And then, yeah, I guess until next time.